Africa, hearing the voice of Africa, smelling Africa, and getting deeply inside Africa. This is a new episode of Africa Today, ladies and gentlemen, on Nile TV International. I'm glad to be with you on 63 years of unity, integration, and development. Let's celebrate together. This is the motto of the organization of the African Unity in this year, which have been celebrated in the University of Cairo, or Cairo University, on Saturday, and the celebration, the 63rd anniversary, marking the establishment of the Organization of the African Unity, the OAU. Now the African Union, AU, from 1963 till 2026. So we're talking about 63 years of integration, development, and sustainable development between the African countries. In the occasion marking Egypt's celebration of the African Day, in this speech, the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi had addressed the celebration via video conference, which have been hosted by the Cairo University. President al-Sisi extended first his congratulations on this historic event, which coincides with the university and the anniversary of the establishment, the Organization of African Union, which reflected people's will for freedom and fixed pillars of African joint action. President el-Sisi said that Africa stands on the door of new era of development and construction, thanks to its huge capabilities and capacities and rich resources. The head of state emphasized also the need to unify efforts to confront the current challenges and safeguard the interests and resources of African people. Of course, the water file, or the water issue, is a big issue at the top of the African agenda. And regarding water issues, President el-Sisi actually underscored the importance of respecting the international law on governing transboundary rivers and adopting a framework based on suitable governance of African rivers in a way that achieves the joint interests. Well, to shed more light on this, we are most delighted to be joined over the phone by our prominent guest, Ambassador Sou'ad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Ambassador Sou'ad, great pleasure always having you with us.
Thank you.
Well, by the speech of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi marking the 63rd anniversary of establishing the Organization of the African Union, he addressed the main challenges of the African continent, which is supposed to be conflicts, financing, management, governance, many challenges. Your point of view, how you assess the main challenges of the African countries?
As you mentioned, that this celebration of the Africa Day was a joint celebration actually between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Higher Education. And it was attended by the Minister of Higher Education of Egypt, Minister Sou'ad, and President el-Sisi gave his address virtually, stressing on the leading role of Egypt in reconstruction and post-conflict development efforts. Also, as you know, that Egypt's role during the past 6 years, from the foundation of the Organization of African Union, which you mentioned, it was 63 years ago. Egypt's position was pivotal in supporting joint African action, whether it is peace and security, whether it is sustainable development or economic ties, trade, and also development efforts towards the Agenda 2063. So Egypt will continue to support everything that contributes to the advancement of the continent's peoples and realization of their aspirations for peace and security. This was the main highlight of the President El-Sisi's address.
Yeah. Ambassador Sou'ad, also President El-Sisi emphasized the need for coordination on many files in Africa, including, of course, or at the top of such files and issues coming the water file, water issue. How can the African nations, your point of view, transform the potential tensions over the shared waterways and within the continent into frameworks for mutual interests for their nations?
Yes, of course, it's a very important issue, and it's on the top of the agenda, of course, and it is always coming up whenever there is an AU summit or AU meetings between the heads of states. Of course, President Sisi highlighted the importance of respecting the international law regarding waterways and trying to solve the scarcity of water around all the African Union, especially in North African region where the desert is looming over as climate change is changing, and climate change is attacking the whole of the African countries, especially the Northern African region. And the Egyptian success in presenting and pioneering models of cooperation and development in solving waterways was particularly the Julius Nyerere Dam project in Tanzania as a model of South-South cooperation, and this could be also replicated in other countries in order to solve this problem of water scarcity.
Yeah, transferring this into mutual collaboration and mutual cooperation between the African countries. Yes.
Exactly.
The President El-Sisi also said that Africa stands on the door of completely new era of development and construction, and this thanks to its huge capacities and rich resources and human resources, of course, as well. So how can you think that the African continent could utilize its resources and integration path, especially with the launch of the AFCFTA?
Yes, of course, it is important to note that both Dr. Abdelaziz Konsowa and Dr. Abdelati both stressed on the issue of investing in African human capital. That means that the fundamental pillar for achieving sustainable development in accordance with Africa Agenda 2063, Egypt will continue to support everything that contributes to the advancement of the continent's people and realization of their aspirations of peace and security. That means that Egypt will play a leading role in the reconstruction and post-conflict development efforts, especially by hosting El Alamein Africa Forum and African Union Mid-Year Coordination Summit, which will take place in June in Alamein. And of course, the Aswan Forum, the 6th edition of the Aswan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development, it reflects all these three events reflect Egypt's position and its role in supporting joint Africa action.
Yeah. Also, President El-Sisi in his address, he reaffirmed that Egypt would continue to be an active partner in supporting developments and reconstruction efforts in the African countries. And regarding what you've mentioned in the establishment of the construction of the dam Giorgio Nyerere in Tanzania and other infrastructure projects in the African countries, how such projects could be like a role model for the exchanging expertise from Egypt that is playing a positive and great role in this particular.
Yes, of course, there are could be play a great role in advancing the economic and the bilateral engagements between African countries, especially the sector is integrated and especially with the financial corporations and the banks are helping the private sector and supporting the frameworks of the economic and infrastructure projects, big projects. So there are fields like renewable energy and there are climate change projects that Africa could invest in, especially that there is a lot of high unemployment and the youth population is increasing and they are facing immense challenges. So that is one of the projects that could be helpful to solve the unemployment problem. Also the food security, the security, yes, the food
combating terrorism.
Yeah. Yes, of course, and education. And there is a lot of infrastructure in the healthcare system that is underfunded.
Pharmaceutical and then healthcare system.
And there should be a way to manage the diseases and the emerging non-communicable diseases like Ebola and other diseases which are causing morbidity and mortality in Africa. So I'm talking about, for instance, education gaps, scientific research. There is a high possibility of involving youth in the digital literacy training, for instance, and in creating barriers in creating barriers to move to participate in the modern global economy, in the AI, for instance, and the inclusion of digital economy and digital education for all the youth in Africa.
Yes, Ambassador Sou'ad Shalaby, former Assistant Foreign Minister, many thanks for your insights and for being with us. Always great having you with us. Have a nice day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving into the condemnation of Egypt concerning establishment the embassy of Somaliland in the occupied Jerusalem, and as Egypt and a number of Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint statement rejecting in the strongest form a decision by the so-called Somaliland to open an embassy in the occupied Jerusalem. And the statement described the move as a flagrant violation of international law and directly jeopardizing the legal and historical status of occupied Jerusalem. The joint statement also expressed the rejection to any unilateral measures aimed at creating an illegal status quo in occupied Jerusalem or at granting legal status to internationally unrecognized. And now moving on to the South African activists and recounted trauma expertise on the hands of Israeli military personnel from the Gaza Flotilla mission, and the 6 activists arrived home earlier after being detained in an Israeli prison. More the following report.
A wave of emotion, determination and raw testimony swept through OR Tambo International Airport as the 6th South African delegates from the global Sou'ad flotilla arrived home after a harrowing detention in an Israeli prison. Kidnapped in international waters while attempting to deliver life-saving aid to Gaza, the activists were greeted by jubilant family members and supporters from the Palestinian Solidarity Alliance and Global Sou'ad South Africa. The delegates shared accounts of physical violence and emotional abuse, likening their conditions to a concentration camp and drawing painful parallels to South Africa's apartheid past. One of the activists spoke about the brutal system he witnessed. He said the system has gone way beyond being an iota of humanity. There is no humanity left. Recounting the moment of interception, he described being shot with a rubber bullet, thankfully absorbed by his thick life jacket. He detailed the systematic abuse inside the prison, which he identified as a notorious 400,000 square meter concentration camp, complete with barbed wire. He said, quote, "Every 5 minutes they would tie your hands behind your back with handcuffs or cable ties and push your head down to your knees while you're standing up and they drag you," end quote. He urged the South African government to escalate sanctions and the energy embargo, noting the cruel irony that the very ship that was carrying them as prisoners was fueled by South African coal.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're still ahead on Nile TV International, our today's edition of Africa Today, and now we're moving into Benin, as the Benin's president, who was sworn in on Sunday, he pledged inclusive development and regional stability. Speaking on the inauguration speech, he stressed that the next phase will focus on ensuring the economic growth translates into tangible improvements in the citizens' daily lives.
Romuald Wadagni was officially sworn in on Sunday as President of the Republic of Benin, pledging to deepen economic reforms, strengthen democratic institutions, and expand social development nationwide. The inauguration ceremony in Cotonou began with military music, setting a formal and symbolic tone for the event. In a notable moment reflecting Benin's culture of respect and democratic continuity, former President Nicéphore Soglo arrived at the ceremony in his car and entered the venue in a wheelchair to attend the inauguration. His presence was widely seen as a powerful symbol of national unity and deep respect for senior statesmen in Benin's society. In his inauguration speech, Wadagni said the country had undergone a profound transformation over the past decade, stressing that the next phase would focus on ensuring that economic growth translates into tangible improvements in citizens' daily lives. He vowed to create greater economic opportunities and support entrepreneurship, while promising expanded access to financing and social protection for women. He also pledged increased support for farmers through mechanization, improved seeds, financing, and agriculture processing infrastructure. Wadagni was elected president on the 12th of April 2026 and officially inaugurated on the 24th of May 2026, marking the beginning of a new phase in Benin's economic and political trajectory.
Still ahead on Nile TV International, our today's edition of Africa Today, and the outbreak, or the horrible outbreak of Ebola, as the death toll from the Ebola virus in Africa has topped to 200 as the WHO raised the Ebola risk to very high in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The African Union's health agency also warned that more countries on the continent were at risk of being affected by the Ebola virus.
Officials in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the death toll from Ebola in the Democratic Republic of the Congo exceeded 200 deaths. This came after the Red Cross said 3 volunteers had died there and Uganda confirmed 3 new Ebola cases. A health ministry statement said 204 deaths had been recorded in 3 provinces of the vast Central African country from 867 suspected cases. The last World Health Organization toll on Friday put the number of deaths at 177 from 750 suspected cases. The World Health Organization has declared the outbreak of the highly contagious hemorrhagic fever an international emergency. On Saturday, African Union's health agency warned that more countries on the continent were at risk of being affected by the Ebola virus, in addition to the DRC and Uganda. John Kaseya, head of the African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Africa CDC, said, "We have 10 countries at risk." Cassia listed Angola, Burundi, the Central African Republic, the Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania and Zambia. Cassia said high mobility and insecurity in the region were helping spread the disease. The new cases confirmed in Uganda on Saturday bring to 5 the total confirmed in the East African country since it was detected there, and in the DRC on May 15. 1 person in Uganda has died. The health ministry named the new patients as a Ugandan driver, a Ugandan health worker and a woman from the DRC. All are alive. Ebola is a deadly viral disease that spreads through direct contact with bodily fluids. It can cause severe bleeding and organ failure. The current epidemic centers on the conflict-racked eastern DRC, where it was detected in Ituri province, which borders Uganda, before spreading to South Kivu.
Well, with this, ladies and gentlemen, come to the end of our today's edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and from myself, Hanan Al-Khuli.